working on a new project, and I wanted to share with you how I make this project every step of the way. It's going to be one of my fish sculptures, and here are a couple of them you can see here that I've done previously using vintage materials, old barn wood, things like that, to make these kind of abstract fish skeleton sculptures. So I'm going to make one, and it's going to be on a much larger scale using different kinds of materials, and I'm just going to show you step by step how I do that, just to share it with you. And I appreciate you watching. I found this old cabinet door actually beside the road. Someone who was renovating maybe a kitchen or something in their home, and they threw it away beside the road, beside the street. And I just picked it up. It was so beautiful to me. It's just very old. It's got a couple layers of old paint, some green, some of that old green right there, which I really like. And it's very common actually in older interior work. I'm not sure why that green color is so common. And then over the top of that green, there's been a white paint also, and it's just perfect to me. There's some old hardware on it right there. I'm going to leave that there. Some, a little crack in it. There's some little nails, and you can see how the corner was put together there. I'm going to leave that intact. Believe it or not, I've actually washed it very thoroughly. So any old mold or anything like that is not present. And that's important to me when I'm doing sculptures with vintage materials, is to actually clean them very well, because you never know what kind of problems they may have, paint wise and dust wise, and lead paint, all kinds of stuff. That's probably all lead paint, so you have to be really careful with it. I'm going to continue with this. This is going to be the basis or the background of my fish sculpture, and let's carry on with it. Some of the pieces for this sculpture will be these chair braces, and just holding them in my hand, you really don't, maybe you don't recognize them, but I've got a chair down here on the floor. I wanted to show you how it works. You've seen these before in a chair. They go typically like this on old-fashioned rocking chairs and dining table chairs. So you've seen that before. It's a chair brace, and they are going to probably end up being the ribs of this magnificent fish. I think these beauties might play a role. I think so. We'll see. Oh, maybe some stained glass. That might work. I think I might use some stained glass on this thing. I wonder how that would look on a fish sculpture. Boy, this is the hardest part. Hardest part is choosing what to leave off, not necessarily what to put on. But we'll see how this works. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, that gives me an idea. Let's see what we got down here. Oh, woo. Beautiful. Yep. I think one of the biggest challenges for assemblage or assembling older pieces together, recycled, repurposed materials, is fastening. How do you fasten the material to each other? And I find my major solution in Tight Bond, which is, I'm not recommending any brand, but this is a waterproof exterior interior wood glue for all my wood bindings or my wood connections, and I like to use this E6000 glue. It is clear, transparent, flexible. It gets tacky really quickly, so it's something that it'll hold very very quickly. It holds really tight. But I do not rely totally on glues. I also use old nails, things like these. These are old nails from some soda crates that I tore apart to use for other purposes, and I kept the nails. And so I'll be using some of those. I also use screws, especially older ones. Maybe a screw with some old paint on it or something like that. I always like to, after I glue something down, to reinforce it if possible with some type of screw or nail. And I always try to add a little bit of glue to the screws and nails to give them that extra bond, because it's very important when something's hanging on the wall, especially something heavy like this sculpture is going to be. You really do need to have good fastening. That is a challenge. Sculpture finished, and instead of taking you through each step along the way and just show you me gluing things down or screwing things down, I wanted to show you how I did it. This is an old piece from an old door. This is an old iron paint. It used to be painted. It's a part of a fence post or a door or something, but it has a hook to it, and I thought it would look great at the fish's mouth to put a hook. And I glued it down, and then I nailed it down with these fence nails, these U-shaped fence fasteners. I don't know if you can see that very well. There you go. And I just nailed them down. Of course, the fish's head and ribs are those chair braces that I showed you at the beginning. This is an insulator that is a fence insulator. It's an old one. I screwed it down. There's a hole in the middle. I screwed it down and glued it. And then I glued this glass, this piece of oval half circle glass. I glued that down. I found a nice piece of orange stained glass that I used here to give it a little bit of color. Here is how I placed the old thread spools. I screwed them down. You can see that I screwed them down with really old screws that have nails, that have paint, old paint on them. And I glued these down, but I also used some of those rusty nails that I showed you earlier also to make sure they were secure. That's one of the things you have to do. You have to make sure everything is secure, so that when somebody hangs it on their wall, pieces won't fall off. I glued these pieces of stained glass on. Just glued them down. I glued these. You saw those in the beginning also, but I also used nails to give them that little bit of extra fastening that they need. I glued these pieces. These are old furniture pieces. They're probably 100 years old or more, at least 100 years old, probably more. They're hand carved and hand designed, and I glued those down, nailed them also, and then I glued these red glass beads or half beads onto these parts of the tail. And then I've got my North Carolina license tag state name, North Carolina, which I thought was a nice touch to it. That is an official North Carolina license tag that I cut the North Carolina off. I nailed those down. I glued them, and then I nailed them down with brass tacks. Brass tacks are kind of a signature fastener that I use whenever I can. And so there you have the whole piece as it looks. And there you go. Simple as that.